you believe that Christians were targeted in Nashville school shooting? You believe that Christians were targeted?
I have no idea.
Josh Foley believes they were. What do you say to that?
Well, I probably don't then.
Probably don't.
No, I'm joking. No, I have no idea.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here. Today we're talking about the absolute ridiculous reaction to what we saw the other day in Nashville, where 3 children and 3 adults were murdered by a completely insane transgender man, which means a biological woman, who is upset that gender-affirming care was no longer going to be available for minors in Tennessee. Now, we can't see the manifesto, of course. We're not allowed to see that. No, we can't see that. We're not allowed, because then we'll know exactly what this is about. And LGBTQ groups, they don't want it out there because they say that will bring violence upon them. Again, transgenocide is not a thing. Let's make this crystal clear. All of this is fabricated nonsense, and these people already know that. But here we are again having this conversation. And you listen to the people on the news talk about this, and it is clear they are not being serious about what the actual issue is here. And again, they're trying to make it about anything but the issue of telling people you're something you're not. We're going to affirm it. And then when you realize that you will never be that thing you claim you want to be, of course, it makes you sad. And it makes you more likely to kill yourself and take other individuals with you. It's a real tragedy. And yeah, we see that. And the impact that has as it ripples across our communities is way worse than most people will let on. But listen to how these people talk about this murderer. On CNN, Don Lemon and other idiots are discussing this. And they're discussing it with kid gloves. Because, of course, the individual is transgender, so we have to be sensitive about that, because nobody really wants to talk about that, because we don't want to acknowledge that this is what led to this, because we're still pretending it's the gun. It's not the individual. It's not the ideology. It's not the idea that these people have been told repeatedly that there are people out there who want to keep them from existing, that there are people out there that want to keep them from being their true selves. And those people apparently were represented in their children that go to that Christian school. So this monster, this woman, goes in there, and if they're not going to let our kids become transgender, well, we're not going to let their kids live. That's the argument that happened here. But we got to be sensitive about the fact that she was transgender.
The police are identifying the shooter as a trans woman. It would actually be a trans man. So there's sort of a misidentification there, but this is all new. I'm just wondering, the identity of being a transgender person and also being identified as a woman, does this pose any sort of difference or difficulty for police, because it's not typically a woman, regardless of how they're identifying? So there are a couple of things here that are different and that we are going to have to talk about and delve into.
Right. So each of these cases is always going to have a particular difference, right? Whether it's someone is angry at their father, or someone had something happen at the school. And this is a unique case, and we have to be sensitive about it to the extent that Audrey Hale identified as a woman. We do not see mass shooters who are female, especially in particular school shooting murderers. This is actually, I think, the first time that I can remember. I know I was on air yesterday stating the same. And so that uniqueness is obviously going to go to only one part of this, right? Each of these school shootings has motive and means. Motive goes to the particular person. What's their mental health situation? What happened at the school? Why did they choose that target? As Andrew was saying, what clues did they leave behind? What was their community seeing? And then the means. And then that's when you get the connectivity, right? That's when you start to see these are all starting to look the same, right? I sort of think now, like, we don't own guns in this country. Guns own us at this stage. And this is where we have to now focus on an important part of an agenda, which includes mental health, protecting our kids, fortifying schools, but also the connectivity, which is a certain kind of gun. Look, pronouns do not kill children, right? People with guns kill children, and it's going to be a distraction in our coverage and keep us from what we now know, which is each of these cases has a similarity more than any difference.
Yeah, and police are identifying the shooter as a trans person, just so you know, right? Just so you know, and you're right, it shouldn't matter the pronoun, but it is something that is different, and people are discussing, and I think we should discuss it, also be sensitive about it, but it is an important part of the conversation.
The argument's always the same. If you tell the truth about what happened, people will be mad about it, and they'll do something. It never happens. We say the same thing all the time. Look at Joe Scarborough and his dumbass wife on MSNBC. They're obsessing over a Christmas card of a member of Congress as if it has anything to do with this. This was not one of this guy's supporters or donors or friends. This is someone who probably opposes everything he believes in. Yet for some reason they're transfixed on that instead of the transgender who actually did this. Why are they transfixed on this? Because they don't want to focus on the actual cause. They want to demonize their political opponents.
And we're letting some yahoos run around saying there's nothing we can do about this. Well, members of Congress put their little children on Christmas cards that have AR-15s there. And like, is that what Jesus wants? Well, like these people, it's just another pure example. And we see it all the time. And this is also in the data. People who identify themselves as Christians who actually don't believe in the faith. That it's like Christian nationalism, which weirdly enough, bizarrely enough, ignores everything that Jesus said in the Gospels. And instead focuses on this hyper-individualistic, hyper-violent a set of facts that would even have one member of Congress whose name doesn't deserve repeating this morning, one member of Congress telling constituents that if Jesus had an AR-15, he would not have been crucified. And what's happened is that supporting the Second Amendment went from supporting people being able to have a shotgun or a handgun, which, by the way, is the only thing that is protected, actually, under the Constitution of the United States if you read the Second Amendment and Heller. But this hyper-individualism over the past 20 years, this extremism that says, I want all my rights, even rights that I haven't had before. Give me more rights. I take no responsibility. And I'm going to take pictures of my children holding AR-15s because of this sick gun culture. And that's how they celebrate Christmas on their Christmas cards. Claire, there is nothing normal about this. And you have most Americans who are repulsed by this activity, by this behavior, by the continued killing, and yet they just go on.
These are the most loathsome people on television, especially Claire McCaskill, the former United States Senator from Missouri. God, what a terrible person. I don't know if she's always been this terrible or maybe TV just brings that out of you. God, what an unlikable, terrible, no good person. Speaking of that, Geraldo Rivera, Fox News. Here he comes. Shame on the Second Amendment.
In terms of the weapons, what about Tennessee with a constitutional carry? This person could legally assemble that arsenal of 7 weapons, including 2 AR-15s and a sawed-off shotgun. For God's sake, I mean, is the Constitution, to me, if the Second Amendment shines on this person accumulating that arsenal, then shame on the Second Amendment.
These people want something done so clearly, but they can't tell you what it actually is. What exactly does this thing Geraldo Rivera is looking at look like? And assault weapons. Okay, what does that mean? Would these weapons even be considered assault weapons? The AR-15 would not, under any other designation, pass laws. As Kilmeade points out here, there already was some bipartisan laws passed on gun control. Just recently. Was that not good enough? We need even more? Well, what exactly are they going to pass that would have ended this? Get these guns off the street. Okay, you're going to go round them up? Of course they're not going to do that. These are not real solutions. This person has a mental health problem. and is an absolute monster. That's what happened here. And until we deal with that, you can talk about all this other stuff you want, demonize all your political opponents and say, well, they won't do what I want, so therefore they're bad. Fine, do that. That's not going to solve any of this. It's not going to solve any of this. We got to stop telling people there's something that they're not. We have to stop pretending that these people are ever going to be the thing they claim they are, because they never will be. And if you want to address this issue, it's got to be a security issue. There is no other way around this. And this school had no armed guards, no security, nothing. That's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. That's a big part of the problem here. And again, it's not their fault. They're not at fault because they were terrorized and victimized. But you'll notice this is the first time that somebody is terrorized and victimized. And we don't really hear about the victims. Nobody's coming out and saying, oh, we're thinking about all the Christians, saying, oh, the Christians are hurting today. You never hear anything about that. But an attack on the Asian community, an attack on the black community, an attack on the gay community, that's all it's about. Not here, not in this particular case. These are just some individuals who happen to be at the same place when somebody went absolutely crazy. We don't want to blame the person who did it, and we don't want to talk about the victims in a way we would if any other group was targeted here. Our society is sick. Our society put a target on the back of these kids, and they're not stopping anytime soon. That's why they keep talking about the transgender affirmation ban for minors in Tennessee as if the shooting is justified because of that. That's why they talk about drag show bans. Yeah, you can't go around kids if you're doing drag shows. Oh, what an absolute tragedy. That's why it's happened. That's why it's justified. You never hear about the justification of targeting of other groups, ever. But here we did.